Welcome, I'm Bev Adams. I own an independent paper crafting business showcasing products from Stampin' Up. I made this card with products from Stampin' Up. I sell the products and also a few items to make crafting more convenient. Some of those things I sell to make crafting more convenient I call taggers. I started making taggers when we started getting all those layering circles and layering ovals, and it was so hard to tell one from the other. Tags are kind of another word for names, so these give your dies a name. I make these taggers out of vellum, so you can use these especially on the stamp cases that have the images 100%. If they are reduced, you can always use these on the stamps themselves to find out just the one that you want to fit. I have a dozen different kinds of taggers now because I'm adding the Tasteful Labels dies and I'm adding the Hippo and Friends dies. Hippo and Friends has lots of different shapes. It's got the hippo, and I guess that's a donkey or a horse, and butterfly, and all these little flowers. But the taggers are only for these larger label kind of shapes. And I also have them for the triangles, the stitched triangles. And for these I put in a separate piece that has the cutout going the reverse way for the smallest of those triangles. And I am going to be using the number 1 stitched triangle die for this project today. I will have the free detailed directions for this project on my website, and you can click the links to the products to be taken to my online store at Stampin' Up. And you'll see where to find all of that at the end of this video. So don't worry about taking notes. It's time to put stamps, ink, and paper together. I've been seeing lots of, they are calling them Scrappy cards, using those little scraps of designer series paper or what have you to make beautiful cards. But like a quilter that buys yards of perfectly good fabric and cuts it up to make scraps for a quilt, I am using a piece of 4 by 5 1/4 Just Jade cardstock for my pieces here. I am using Just Jade ink, our new in color, and I'm using 5 embossing folders. I chose the Greenery embossing folder, Dainty Diamonds, Tasteful Textile, Old World Paper, and these are all new in the annual catalog. And then I'm also using the Subtle Dynamic Textured Impressions embossing folder. My stamp set is Forever Fern, and I am just using You Can Do This. I wanted to show you that when I cut card bases, I start out by scoring at 4 1/4 and then cutting at 5 1/2, and that gives me 2 card bases. Any grid paper will work, this larger grid paper or whatever. I am going to lightly tack it down, just very lightly, to the grid paper, and I want to line it up. I want to center it on the dark lines, and then I'm going to bring in my die cutting machine. Did you see the new die cutting machine in the catalog? I know it's not available just yet, but it's coming very soon. But until that arrives, I'm using my old die cutting machine. Any die cutting machine will work. I am using the magnetic platform just for ease. So I cut this grid paper down so it fits on this machine, and I'm pulling out this large number 1 triangle, and I selected this one because it goes beyond the side of the cardstock. So I have my cardstock centered on the grid paper, tacked down so it stays put. I have my triangle on the line with just maybe less than an inch of the point here, and this needs to be centered between the, and this needs to be centered this way too. So I'm just going to cover it up and run it through. So I'm going to lay it aside so that it stays in the right order. And then I'm going to move my triangle up to the next inch line. And again, I want to have it centered. And parallel, maybe I'll move it back to this side of the line. And cover it up and run it through. And again, I'll set this piece aside. And when I was trying it out the first time, I thought, that's easy peasy. No measuring, no nothing. I just move it up. And then I realized I had a problem because it's cutting these off here. And I didn't want to cut those off. So let me show you what I did. You just need the beveled part to be cutting where the die goes beyond the cardstock here. And you do not want the top plate to be pressing down on the die. And then we'll run it through and we'll be fine. No problem at all. And we'll just line this one up with the others. And then we want to repeat. So coming down to this one, centering on the grid, making sure that you're not covering up that back of the triangle. Run it through. And one more triangle. So coming up to here. I'm going to move this for just a second. We are going to need that machine again. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 pieces. So I'm not using this piece here. And then I wanted to show you that these 3 are more subtle designs. These 2 I thought were more dramatic. And so I'm kind of alternating those a little bit. And bringing back my die cutting and embossing machine. And so I don't want to use the magnetic platform. My first embossing folder was the Dainty Diamonds, and this is a 3D embossing folder. And this is one of the newer ones. So I'm going to line this up. I want to be sure and line this up with the pattern. So this is the new 3D embossing folder. And we sold these blue embossing plates. We don't carry these anymore, I don't believe. So if you don't have one of these, and since we don't have the new die cutting machines yet, you will need to add some cardstock or maybe even some of the thinner cardboard so that you get it thick enough to make your impression as you roll it through. So we have our first piece. My second one is this lovely old world 3D embossing folder. And I think this time I'm going to run it through at kind of a diagonal here. And again, I'm using the blue top. Isn't that lovely? This is one of my new favorites, I think. And then we have the Tasteful Textile. Another 3D embossing folder. Pretty. And then I'm using the Greenery. These are made to fit those new mini embossing machines. I'm using this one with the leaves on it. And this one is not a 3D embossing folder. So I will need 2 clear plates. And I kind of For my sample, I lined up my leaves this way, and a second clear plate on top. I understand that the new mini machine will be able to do those thicker 3D embossing folders. And then I wanted to use the Settle embossing folder for two reasons. One, I wanted you to see how it compares to this one, but also because I bought mine before we had our new design. Maybe you have some of the older embossing folders. They're thicker than the Stampin' Up 3D embossing. These were called dynamic folders. And so I'm going to go ahead and put my piece in here. And for this one, I do not want to use the blue plate, and I need one single clear plate on top. I want to be sure it's tucked in. Next, I want to stamp my greeting on my card front. And I imagined these designs being kind of an arrow, so I thought that maybe this stamp set was an encouragement. So I want to put this over as far as I can. This first one is going to go as far, I want to center it top and bottom, and I want to go as far to the right as I can. And my preference for embossed layers is actually the liquid glue. And this also gives me a little bit of wiggle room here to get it positioned the way I want it to be. Okay. Maybe up a tiny bit. There we go. Now for this card, I did leave a gap, and so I ended up trimming quite a bit over here. For this one, I'm going to try and go right up against that and see how that works, to have no gap at all. Let's see how that works out. You do have the stitching and the change of textile. I kind of like that just fine. So the next one, this is getting budded all the way up here. And I may have a gap here. Interesting. So on this one I had to trim it to get it to fit. All the way up. Now, if you are putting that gap in here, I just put a little mark here and then trimmed it with either snips or the paper trimmer, either way. So with this, I can actually put my adhesive here. Fit that in, and then I have a literal scrap, so I think I am going to put that there. So I just marked it with my scissors a little bit, and I'll snip it. There are no mistakes, only opportunities for embellishments. So I kind of like that. So you can do this. This is not just an encouragement for the person you're sending the card to. It's also an encouragement to you. You can make this card. You can make it with 5 different embossing folders, or with maybe designer series paper instead, or different colors. I hope you enjoy this scrappy design. Here is the web address for this project, where you'll find the free detailed directions and links for the products I used. Under Shop, I have tips for online shopping, frequent shopping rewards, and products I offer to help you stay organized. I offer a cardstock sampler, taggers to help you identify those dies with lots of similar shapes, heavy-duty bags to store 12 by 12 and 6 by 6 paper, a replacement tip for the fine tip glue pen in case yours gets clogged, and a bow maker. Share my Evernote notebook of current products for a nominal contribution. It functions as a fully searchable catalog. Inspiration takes you to all my projects. If you're new to stamping, you might want to look at the basics. You'll find how to cut card bases and layers, what's special about Stampin' Up! Stamps, and some of my favorite tools. Under Organization, you'll find catalog tabs, labels and case inserts, a practically free stamp pad storage solution, a basic toolkit, as well as a compact desktop toolbox, and lots of color charts. You can take a tour of my craft wall. More organization means more time for crafting. Come stamp with me here in Ventura County, California, or get the best deal of all and join my team of crafters. The team is called SIP Together, and it stands for Stamps, Ink, and Paper Together. The team is made of crafters who want to save money on the products they buy, share with a few friends, or grow a business like mine. Be sure to subscribe to my website and on YouTube. I'd love to hear your comments. Thank you for joining me. Talk to you soon. Bye.